Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed, unmotivated, anxious, tired, detached? These are all questions that the Best Self Co website has to promote this new Overcoming Burnout Journal. I purchased this with my own money. I bought it off of Amazon. It got here the next day, and today I am going to do a thorough review of it, show you what's inside to help you decide if you think this journal is right for you. But before I get started, if you're new here, hey, my name is Lauren, and on here I talk all things planning and self-care. The reason why I was attracted to this journal is not because I'm currently experiencing burnout, but because I have a prior history of experiencing it. And I thought, what better person than me to kind of look through this to judge whether I feel this would be a journal that would benefit someone who feels like they are on the verge of burnout or might be experiencing burnout. So first off, the journal is about A5 size. Their website doesn't specify the dimensions. I didn't even go back to look at Amazon to see if Amazon has a specification on the size of it, but I put up another A5 journal next to it and it's the same size. So that's approximately what this is. It comes with an elastic band that you can use to keep it closed. And on this sleeve, it says it's a 4-week guide to addressing burnout and creating an authentic, fulfilling life. On the back, it explains that burnout is often a sign that something in our lives is no longer in alignment with who we want to be or how we want to live. This journal helps you explore these conversations with yourself and get clarity on what you truly want and which actions to take to get there. I went to the company website, and based on their website, Best Self Co., which was founded in 2015, they create meaningful products and tools that help you create positive change in your life. So if this journal, after you look at this, you feel might not be an exact fit for you, I encourage you to check out some of their other ones, because based on just me looking at this and how thorough this one is and how much information this has, I feel like their other journals are going to be just as thorough and deep and worth looking into. When I picked it up, I actually didn't even realize that it was only a 4-week journal. And so the price being $30, at least on Amazon, it was $30 on their website. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's probably the same on their website. But as Amazon Prime, it shipped free. On their website, I believe free shipping is for $35 and up. So if you shopped on their website, you wouldn't be able to get free shipping if you just ordered this journal. Just a heads up in case. But I'll make sure to leave a link in the description to the Amazon. I'll leave an Amazon link. Oh my goodness. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description to get you to Amazon if you want to just get that. But I'll also leave a link to their website so you can look at all the other things that they have in case there's something else there that you're interested in. And I'm not affiliated with this. Again, this was a purchase I made on my own because I truly wanted to determine for myself if I felt like this is something that could help somebody who's experiencing that like I did. So the first page is a thicker cardstocky page, and it's just where you put your name. You can list what time you started it, what time you completed. Before I get too far in though, I would recommend, because this is like a workbook / journal style, and it's possible that you might want to do this journal more than one time to avoid that expense. If you have another notebook that you have on hand, which I'm pretty sure if you're watching this and you are into journals and planning or whatever, you probably have another notebook laying around that you can use. I would use that in addition to like using this to get the questions and read through what the prompts are, and then use your own notebook to write in. That way you kind of have that separate. And then if in the future you have to return to this for some reason, if you feel like you end up back, slowly creeping back towards burnout and you might need to redo this again, then you have that and you don't have to like re-buy it again, if that makes sense. So that's what I would recommend. I haven't done any pen testing or anything in here because I feel like the paper looks like it's fine. It doesn't, when I was flipping through it and reading. I don't feel like I can see too much. The way this lighting is right now, it's kind of making it seem like that, but I don't think this quality is poor to where, you're going to have an issue. I'm pretty sure you'll find a pen that will work just fine. If not, use pencil. Pencil won't cause any issues. But the journal starts off with basically some explanations of what burnout is and then some instructions on how to use the journal. And then the bulk of it are the weeks. So it's broken down, and the way they have it listed here is reflect, redesign, realign, and rise, which you might be thinking, what the heck does that even mean? Well, after going through it and reading through what the week's focuses are, what it actually boils down to is week 1 is about identifying the stressors and energy drains that are happening in your life currently. And then in week 2, you have its self-care focus. So focusing on how to better take care of yourself. Week 3 is about boundaries and saying no to things. And in week 4, it's about gratitude. Now, there is some prep work involved in this before you jump into week 1. And they recommend that you take 1 to 2 days to complete that prep work, which includes a quiz. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, that quiz comes up again so that you can compare your answers from the beginning of the journal to the end without a specific quiz. But then there's also extra prompts, journal prompts in the beginning to kind of get you going before you dive into the journal. I assume it's kind of like a way to also gauge your starting point, but as someone who's been journaling for a really long time, I feel like it's almost like a way to get your feelings figured out. And sometimes it takes several sentences and paragraphs of writing before I uncover what's really bothering me, if that makes any sense, if you're a journaler and you understand what I mean. And I'm saying this from someone who's been a journaler who doesn't use prompted journals. That's just kind of like my 2 cents. These are obviously prompts in the beginning, and then there are spaces within each day when you get to the weeks where you do have a free space to journal what you want. They do include journal prompts each week that are focused on that week's prompt, or you know what I mean. If, for example, week 1 is identifying stressors and energy drains, so the journal prompts that you are given that you can use in your free write space if you want to are related to that topic. But let's go ahead and flip through. I do want to take a moment to, I'm not going to read everything in this journal, but I do want to take some time to kind of help you understand and read through some of what this says that burnout is, in case you kind of aren't sure if that is something that you are experiencing. Okay, it defines burnout as a form of severe and prolonged physical and mental exhaustion. And then it explains the differences between stress and anxiety. Stress being a way that our body responds when we feel threatened or pressured, and that stress can show up in all kinds of ways, like anger, panic, or feeling weepy or withdrawn. And then anxiety is a feeling of being worried or afraid about what might happen. It might seem like they're starting off by getting you to think that these are not related. However, they are, because it goes on to say that our body is able to cope with some levels of stress and anxiety, but if it's left unchecked, prolonged states of stress can lead to full-blown burnout. Burnout is when you feel completely depleted, unmotivated, and can no longer manage it all. And I 100% agree with these definitions of these terms. Having experienced it myself, and then having deep dived over many years of research and trying to understand how stress impacts the body and all that. From my personal experience of my own research outside of what this is telling me, I agree with what this says. And then it tells you what causes burnout. Now, when I got to this part, this kind of confused me. So if you feel like these lists of common causes of burnout might not jive with what your current experience is, then just know from my experience, just the fact that if you've been in a prolonged state of stress for a long time, you will likely be in a burnout or almost burnout situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that those stresses align with any of these things right here. In my instance, my husband worked away from home for a really long time, and I had to take care of young children, an infant for a lot of it. And that's kind of like the prolonged period of stress that I was under that resulted in the burnout, along with obviously like not managing the stress well. And that's what this journal does, is it kind of helps you in the very beginning. It helps you to identify the stresses that are currently going on in your life, which I think is very important. That kind of was key in the beginning of my journey, is to identify what the things are that are the stressors and the things that drain you. And then it leads into a period of teaching you that it's okay to practice self-care, and it explains all that here. But I did want to explain that in the very beginning here, just in case there's any question, if you don't know, like if that's what you're experiencing. I like that it dives into, I would read all of this. Like just this material in the beginning alone is really good knowledge to help you understand that, one, what you're going through is normal, and two, that this actually is a real thing. There's a word for it, and that there is like a way to get yourself away from that. I think just that alone, I honestly don't know that I would have bought something like this for myself had I seen it. This is something I think that if you know somebody in your life who is probably approaching that phase and you see it, this would probably be a good gift to give them. I know that like this is like a very sensitive subject for some people, and for some people they might feel offended to receive something like this, but you never know. And I think had someone given this to me when I was at that point in the very beginning, just before I myself realized, I have to do something different, then this would have greatly expedited my journey. It tells you this is not going to help you overnight, but I honestly think that this definitely gives you a lot of information, just the right information. I shouldn't say a lot of information. It gives you just the right information to help you feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. And to encourage you that things can get better, and that as someone who's anxious, like, and experience anxiety, I think this is great because it gives you that like step-by-step what's next. I love that it points out that like, the section here about how to recover from burnout. And it says right here, it gives an example that addressing the symptoms by itself is not enough, that you need to dig deeper to figure out what is causing your burnout. And it gives an example that if you're feeling physically exhausted, it says a weekend off the grid may make you feel better at the moment, but if you return home to the same situation that caused your burnout, you'll likely end up back where you started. And I couldn't agree with this statement more, that it's not enough to just periodically do like an escape, that there are changes that actually need to be made in your day-to-day life in order for you to recover from it. And then you have to create sustainable habits moving forward to maintain where you are, to get to like, so you don't get to that point again. And I know this from like my own experience. I'm not a doctor. I am not a professional at all when it comes to like stress management. I can just only speak for my own experience. And just based on what this is saying, I know this to be true. I really appreciate this. I've never seen one of these before. And I thought it was interesting that this is in here, because I would bookmark this page, because when you get to the daily journaling pages, it will be helpful for you to kind of pull back on here if you're struggling with identifying what feelings you're feeling. So this, I feel like, I need to like make a copy of this and stick it like in all my journals. Of course, suicide prevention line here. If you are feeling suicidal or someone you love, make sure you encourage them to call the National Suicide Prevention Line, 800-273-8255. All calls are confidential. So, important information there. This explains how to use your journal. And I like how it gives you this do's and don'ts, because one of the don'ts is like, don't worry if you miss a page. I'm glad that they kind of put that up front, because it can feel overwhelming to be like, okay, I'm going to commit to this journal. And then you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot. But it honestly isn't. So it explains like how it's laid out. I'm going to go over, so we don't really need to like go through all of this. But like I said, it gives you all the explanations of like how it's laid out and what each section, what the purpose of everything is. So it's good that it has all that information here. And then this explains the part about the freedom spaces, like I told you about. And right here where it tells you you have 10 journaling prompts for each weekly theme. I agree with what this says about how important the freedom spaces are. It obviously tells you you don't have to use them if you don't want to, but the reason behind it is that when you pour your unedited thoughts onto the blank page, you free up bandwidth for deeper thought and clarity. That kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how when I journal, and sometimes I get on in my journal, I just start writing. I eventually reach a point where I suddenly like feel like I'm in my deeper thoughts, and like at first it's like superficial, and then it gets to more like deep things, and then I get more clarity, and that's when sometimes breakthroughs happen where I realize, oh shoot, like this is probably what I need to do differently, or this is probably like why I'm feeling this way, that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to not just leave the freedom spaces blank, and to really just use the journal prompts to try and see if any of those prompts will trigger something that you might want to write about, as opposed to just like leaving it blank. Of course, if you have a day where you're really just not feeling it, I understand leaving it blank, but do not dismiss the blank area in here as like, I can just not do it, because there are plenty of other questions. It might make you feel like, since there are plenty of other prompts on the page every day, that by itself is enough. And it might be, but I would encourage you to use the freedom spaces. So this is where the prep work starts. And it explained in the beginning that you should take 1 to 2 days to complete the prep work. And so the prep work is this page here. That's a grid. What do you need to get out of your head now? So it's basically like a brain dumping space. And then these 2 lined pages, imagine, what if this is a new beginning? Imagine, what if I'll grow through this period of adjustment and change? And then here is the benchmark burnout quiz that I told you about, that there's also another quiz in the back. So it is 9 questions, and then you have a little reflection section here to jot down, anything that you want. And then the rest of the prep work, some clarity questions. It says to use these prompts to deepen your exploration into your feelings, but these questions may stir up emotion, so don't feel like you need to answer them all in one sitting. Anytime any kind of journal or planner has prep work, I always like to just do a little bit at a time, just because it like mentally feels exhausting for me to vomit out all my feelings on paper. It kind of is draining. So I do not recommend doing all of these at once. And even if like maybe the first time you go through it, you just kind of read through all of them, see which one speaks to you at the moment, and then you can write on that one, and then you can come back to the other one later at another point. Or if maybe at the moment you don't have a lot of time to like really get deep on it, but you're like, oh, I know I can write about this, you can make yourself a brief little note, maybe on a sticky note, and stick it on there. Or like I said, if you're using a separate journal, which I would recommend doing, then you can like just make a note like, this is what I want to talk about, and then you can come back to that later and really dive into it. And I think this is the last one, a set your intentions page. I like how they have these quotes. There are some quotes throughout, and I'm pretty sure every week, every day, there's like one of these. This section for setting your intentions, it says start by taking a few moments to get clear on why you chose to use this journal. What do you hope to experience and achieve over the next 4 weeks? And then there's just blank for you to write. Well, it's not blank, it's lined. Any other thoughts that you want to just write down before you start week 1. So no lack of journaling pages, I don't think. However, you might feel like you want to journal more than what, these little boxes are, which again is kind of why I think Using a separate journal might be helpful because then you can feel like you can write longer or shorter and you don't have to feel constricted to the spaces that you're given in here. All right, this is where week 1 starts, and it does come with like a ribbon, but there's only one ribbon, which I think is a bummer. I wish there was more than one because of the fact that this is where week 1 starts. The journal prompts for the week are at the end of the day pages. So I would have preferred like to have a ribbon to mark that, and then you have another ribbon to mark like what day you're on. And then I would even want to have another ribbon to mark that feelings wheel in the front. But you can just use a bookmark or like some kind of a tab, like sticky, that would be helpful to do that. So week 1 and week 2 have prep pages, and week 3 and week 4 do not. Just so you know, it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is a lot because you just did all those prep pages before you get to this, and then you have a little bit of prep here before like day 1 even starts. Just keep that in mind. However, I like how this little box tells you, like, this one tells you what's going to happen this week, but I believe in the other one, it tells you, like, by the end of the week, this is what's going to have happened. Very important to read through all of this information. It explains, like, the reason behind the work that you're going to do. So, like I told you before, week 1 is about identifying the stressors and drains. So, it explains what the difference is between a stressor and a drain. So obviously the stressors are things that create the stress, and energy drain is something that zaps your energy, leaving you feeling tired, lethargic, and unmotivated. It talks about creating your stop list here, but it's not something you're going to do until after the week's over, that you'll create the stop list. So that kind of confused me at first. I had to like go back because I was like, wait a minute, it said I'm going to do my stop list because it tells you right here, you're going to identify some things you want to stop doing. So I thought it was going to be in the prep, but it's not. It's in the end of the week during the reflection, which every week there's like a reflection portion. I like the idea of a stop list because it can be helpful to like identify like what things you're no longer going to do. And not in this week, but in following weeks, it is going to have like a little tracker in it that's going to help you make sure you're staying on top of that. And I'll show you that in a minute. So here's the last like prep page before week 1. How does burnout present for you? This is like another little quiz. It tells you to take the quiz to gauge what you might think and then do the deeper dive over the next 7 days to see what's really happening. I think what they mean by do the deeper dive are the 7 days, because the prompts on those are supposed to probably be the deeper dive questions, although they're not exactly like this. And by the end of the week, it's telling you that you might realize that the root cause is different than you think it is. So this might help give you like a starting point for things. And these are all like related to stressors and things that can drain you. And then it moves into day 1. So it has a space for you to write the date. It has a little quote. This has today's stressors, and this is not the same throughout the whole journal. Like each week there's different prompts. So for this week, it's all going to be the same for the 7 days. It's going to have, a space for you to what created stress, why it caused stress, and I've been doing it because. And then today's energy drains, what drained my energy, why it drained me, I've been doing it because. Burning me out is blank because. And then it says here, answering this question for 7 consecutive days helps reveal the root cause of what's burning you out. So it might seem redundant, and I kind of thought the same when I saw that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to answer these exact questions every single day. However, I had to change my perspective and remember that the way I'm looking at it now is like post burnout recovery Lauren, and the Lauren who was burnt out. This would have been very helpful because it would have helped me to see and identify like the energy draining things faster and the things that were stressing me out faster. And it wouldn't have been something that just kind of evolved over time, and it would have put like words to it sooner and all of that. And then the section, some ways I can remove this factor from my life include. So then it gets you to start like brainstorming like how you might be able to remove it. And that is actually like a lead into how the stop list comes in at the end with a reflection. So it kind of gives you like, you're kind of working those muscles of getting into the habit of like thinking about like, how can I remove this? Even before you even get to that stop list part, which is where you actually like write down what you're going to stop. This space is, I think, identical every single, on this side is the same every time. Yeah. Yep. So this page is, this freedom space page is always going to have this amount of space, and it's always going to have these same questions, and it's always like on this side of the page. So you have like the 2 pages every day to fill out. And so you mark what today's energy levels were, what contributed to your energy score, today's stress levels, what contributed, how I felt, and what contributed to the way you felt. So this is going to be the same throughout the entire 4 weeks, just this side alone. Every week these change. So of course these quotes are going to change every day, but for the 7 days you've got to answer these. And then for the first week reflections, this is that page I told you about that has the journaling prompts. So you would come back to here. I would bookmark this. You would come back to here when you get to like this area, so you can figure out what you want to journal on, if like staring at a blank is freaking you out, or if you need like just something to jog. And you look at this, and these have examples. So some, like, the way I feel about myself today is because the thing I'm struggling to acknowledge about this point in my life is the things that burnout has taught me about myself is I can give myself more grace, compassion, and gentleness by, that's a good one. The things I can change in my life immediately include, how did it get to this? Yeah, these are some good, like, deep questions to think about to help you with this. So you don't have to answer all of these or any of them at all, but I would use this to kind of jog, to kind of help you figure out what you want to write on these in this space every day. And then here's the week 1 reflection. So every week you have like some kind of reflection. And so for this week 1, you're reflecting on your energy, stress, and feelings. And this is where you're going to create your stop list. And so it tells you to revisit this past week's daily pages and list what's burning you out. Then you indicate whether you can stop them now, soon, or later. So you're going to go back to these pages, and right here where it says what's burning me out. So you're going to use this kind of right here to help you figure out like what sorts of things are burning you out, and you can list them over here. And then you identify like, when can you stop them? Can you stop them right now? Can you stop them maybe not right now, but soon? And this one like later. And then for each now item, you're going to explore what needs to happen to remove them. So it gives you some space right there. And then it tells you to commit to 1 to 3 things that you're going to stop doing for the rest of this journal for like the immediate next 4 weeks. And I like that it told you 1 to 3. I highly would lean on 1, maybe 2. I don't know if 3. It just depends on what the things are, only because of my understanding of like habits and like changing things. You really should only change like 1 thing at a time. It really just depends on how big the thing is that you're changing. So use judgment on what you're going to do. And then it tells you that there is going to be a space for you to monitor this. And there wasn't a tracker in here, but moving forward, there's going to be that tracker for you to track that, to make sure that you are not doing that thing. And I'll show you in a minute. So here's week 2 is about, they use the word redesign, which is about self-care, basically helping you to understand that it's important to take care of yourself. That's what these like beginning pages explain. I think we all know that it's important to take care of ourselves, but we all sometimes to a point might feel guilty about it, or we don't truly realize like that we can take care of ourselves in small increments of time, and that can actually be enough. And it actually says somewhere in here, I think about like 10 minutes a day is enough, which I agree. I don't remember exactly where it said it now that I'm trying to find it. I should have marked it. But okay, so this is the only other week that you have like prep work in the beginning. And so this is the only page of like, actually there's 2 parts. This is part 1, part 2. So this part 1 is about energizing habits. So here you're going to answer these questions about how you're going to practice energizing habits each day. So it's about sleep. So you're going to like, this is how much sleep I'm going to get. This is what time I'm going to go to bed. This is the time I'm going to wake up. And this is how I'm going to wind down. I think this is important here that it like right away is like getting you to figure out how you're going to wind down before bed, because I found that to be very important to helping me avoid like that situation where you lay down and then like your brain just like starts thinking a lot about stuff. So, and I actually really like and appreciate the fact that this doesn't give you like concrete, like this is what you need to do. It kind of leaves it open to like you use your judgment on what you think is best. So it doesn't tell you how much sleep you should get or anything like that. It just leaves it open for you to decide, like with the nourishing foods, and then with like how much water to drink, and then the kind of movement that you want to make. In the part 2, it explains the part where I was telling you where we need to like work on this, cultural belief that like taking care of ourselves is selfish, and it actually isn't. And it straight up tells you right here that self-care doesn't always mean spa dates and luxury bubble baths, although it can. And what's more important is taking quality time to care for your health and mindset and do what you love. Even just 10 minutes a day makes a huge impact. And I 100% agree. I think 10 minutes a day is absolutely doable. And this is where it gives you kind of some suggestions on some things that you can do that are like self-care based. Really like the only space in this whole journal where I saw any kind of like, here's some ideas. And then it does give you space so you can write like your own. So some of the things on here that I think are really great: journaling, of course, yoga, yes, meditation, yes, reading, like reading novels if you enjoy reading, like always like with the perspective of like this has to be something you enjoy, because like actually when I got to this part where it said cook something delicious from scratch, I was like, no, that sounds super stressful and not something I would enjoy. That doesn't sound like self-care to me. That sounds like work. So like these are just suggestions for some people. Like cooking something delicious from scratch sounds like amazing and therapeutic, and I agree that there are some times where I'm cooking in the kitchen and it does feel like very, zen, but that's not like a go-to for me. Some people it is. Explore your creativity. In the planning community, I think a lot of us are creative beings, so I think it's important to do that. Obviously, make time for your favorite hobby. If planning is your favorite hobby, make sure you're making time for it. Unplug completely with scheduled tech-free time. I agree with this. I do this every Sunday. I have like a social media break where I don't scroll social. That includes like YouTube sometimes. Sometimes I like still watch a YouTube video, but I try for the most part to like not, absolutely like no Instagram. And of course, it's not perfect. Like sometimes I do, but that's like my dedicated day to kind of like be like, nope, you're not gonna be on it. Also, 7:30, I put away my phone. So after 7:30, I try not to be on there unless it's like, oh my god, I forgot to post something and I need to. But that's because like I'm a content creator, so I mean that's the nature of it. But if you're not, you don't need to be on there. Let's see, what's a nap? For sure, massage. And I get massages every month. I highly recommend if you absolutely can in your budget, if it's within your budget. Sitting in nature is great. Gardening, great. I agree with those. Yeah, those are like some of my like go-to things. Sometimes listening to music is something I lean on, and I really don't have any like uplifting podcasts. If you have any recommendations for some uplifting podcasts that you like listening to, please drop them in the comments, because I am actually kind of feeling meh about my podcast feed lately. But anyway, that's an aside. Okay, so then prep work continues. Step 3 is your stop list. So it kind of asks, this is not really like creating your stop list because we did it at the end of, where did we do it? Right here. Here's your stop list, okay? So it just kind of wants to talk you through making sure that you understand that resistance is normal, that it's a sign that that we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And it gives you a really good question here to ask yourself, that if you that when you feel the pull to keep doing the things that are on your stop list, to get curious about this feeling. Do you truly want to continue doing the thing on your list, or is your brain simply trying to keep you safe? Because our brains love when we are just staying the same, because it knows what it knows. It knows like this is safe. Whenever we go adventure and do something different, our brain like freaks out. Like I cannot emphasize enough, like it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it literally does. Our brains literally freak out. Can you imagine? Okay, like if you watch the movie, dang, what's the name of that Disney movie? I'm gonna pop it up here. Where anger or what's his name? Fear or sadness, like when they like freak out, there's a part in the movie. There are actually a couple parts in the movie, but like imagine that. Like imagine you've got these little like people in your brain and like all of a sudden you decide like this is something that you're going to do differently, and like those little people in your brain are like freaking out. That's like not an exaggeration, totally true. It has to do with like the pathways and like things that like there's like these paths that your brain like carves in, and it, like this is what you're doing the same thing every day. Let's say you're always eating something while you watch TV and it's something that you want to stop doing. I don't know why I gave that example. Anyway, your brain has this pattern that's developed, and so if you sit down and you don't have the food, your brain's kind of like, what's going on? Like this is not the path that we are used to. Like you're trying to like make us go this other direction, and we've never been there before. It's dark, it's scary, and I don't know what to do. Anyway, I love that it gave this in here because that's a piece of information that when I first like learned that, it's like, wow, our brains do what? That's why it's so hard to like make good changes or even bad changes. Like that's why it's hard to like make changes, period, in general. And that's why you get the resistance. Is it's just your brain trying to protect you because it thinks like this is what we know, this is what's kept us alive for so long, and if you try and do something that's not, it's going to freak out. All right, so here are the prompts for the second week, and these are going to be the same. And I think I just realized it looks like there's a color difference between, like that even matters. This is like green, this is blue. And then does it go back to green? Or is it just this page? That's weird. Look at this. It's just the ink, probably just the printing of the ink difference. I don't know. That was weird. Okay. That's weird. Anyway, quote, place for date. Okay, so this week today I will prioritize myself and make time for me by, and you identify what you're going to do, and then pick the time of the day that you're going to do it. Proactive steps to take to measure this moment of self-care. Proactive step. Okay, that's proactive steps to take to ensure that this happens. Yeah, sometimes there are some logistic things that have to happen in order for you to take care of yourself. Like for example, if you have to get a babysitter or drop off one of your kids with a family member, or they're going to come to you in order for you to go get your massage appointment, then like you can write down like that's the steps that you're going to take to make sure that happens. Or another example would be like sometimes visual cues are very helpful to help you get into a habit. So if your yoga mat, let's say you're trying to get into the habit of doing yoga, I'm going to use that example because I do yoga every day. For me, a cue can be like seeing the yoga mat on the floor in the space that you're going to use it, like if you're going to walk past it. So if you go ahead and set that up ahead of time and you have it like set up, as opposed to the yoga mat being rolled up in the closet, like it being rolled up in the closet is not going to remind you that, hey, you need to do it. Or you know what? Get a dang sticky note, right? On a sticky note, stick it on the mirror so that you know that you're going to see it at the time. Or you can use your phone and tell Siri, hey, remind me at this time that this is what I want to do. And then you'll get a little reminder, because sometimes if you just write it down in your planner, that's not going to help if you don't even look at the planner. I think that can actually be listed as like a step that you took. Like I told Siri to remind me to do this. Okay. Overcoming Burnout Tracker. So this is the tracker that's going to be here throughout the rest of the journal. And so here's the part where it says I didn't do anything on my stop list. So you check that off. And then these are the other things that are going to be here throughout the rest. And these all have to do with self-care. So I got enough sleep, I ate nourishing food, I drank enough water, I got some exercise, I prioritized myself and my needs. And you have a space for writing observations. Today I prioritized myself by, and today I stopped doing. And then again, this is the exact same as before. So these are going to be the same prompts for every day in the second week. It's kind of tripping me up that those colors are off. I don't know. That must have been a printer issue. Okay, these are the journal prompts, again, that you can use for these weeks. I kind of wished, I don't know, I just kind of wish this would be in the front, but I guess just the logistics of how the layout goes, maybe that just didn't work out that way. Some of these, I am the most important person in my life because, wow, it's something that some people probably have never thought about. It's easy to make quality time for myself because, or to me, self care means affirmations that would empower me to fill my own cup. So these are cool. I think over a week of like that really would help like chip away at that mindset of feeling like, self-care is not important or that I don't deserve self-care or whatever other feelings you might have about it. Again, a week 2 reflection, and I feel like, no, I think this part is the same. Let's see. This part is the same as week 1, this tiny part up here. Let's see. Yeah. Energy, stress. Okay, yeah. This part right here, I think it's probably the same every week reflection. So it seems like that. We'll check the next one. These are different. Putting myself first, how I felt about making more space and time for me. The lift of self-care. The self-care moments, experiences that worked best for me. This was because, and this is good to identify, my experience of following through, and going forward, I will. All right, now there's no more prep work, guys. Okay, so this is called realign, which really is just about boundaries and saying no, which I think they use the word realign because they want you to realign with like what your values are. And obviously, if you're valuing protecting your energy and prioritizing your self-care, then you probably need to align those actions, and that might require saying no to things that are going to drain your energy or things that are going to take you away from properly taking care of yourself. See how here it has an outcome saying that by the end of the week that you'll know what prevents you from saying no. You'll practice saying no when it's the right response. Explore how it feels to have more of your life center around the things you enjoy. Experience the joy, freedom, and sometimes the discomfort of aligned choices. And then, of course, it just says this is about setting boundaries. We're protecting our time, energy, and presence by practicing the art of saying no. See, goes right into the day. So it's important to like read that and then you just jump right in. So first we have describe the opportunity, ask, invitation that you're considering saying yes or no to. And yes, you might be wondering, is this the same question every day for 7 days? Yes, it is. I think it might seem really like repetitive. I don't feel like I have very many opportunities where I'm being asked or invited, or there's an opportunity for me to give a yes or no answer. However, that's from like the limited perspective of like somebody approaching me and saying, here's an opportunity, yes or no. We always have these choices of saying yes and no to things. It can be broader than just like somebody literally asking you to come and do this, because you also could be like in your mind deciding if you want to take on something else. For example, maybe you're deciding you want to take on a new business venture or a side hustle or whatever. That's like an opportunity, but no one is asking you. You could be thinking about it yourself and you're going to decide like yes or no. So I just wanted to put that out there as like I would, in my opinion, I don't know if the people who made this journal feel like that might align with it or not, but that's kind of how I would interpret it also, so that it's more broad and it doesn't feel like that. When we get to the journaling questions, I'm going to see if any of that like kind of touches on that. But okay, then it goes on. If I say yes, how would I feel and what would happen? If I say no, how would I feel? The most aligned choice for me is because, and I can empower myself to follow through on the response I choose by. And then here's the burnout tracker. And I think these are the same. The aligned choices I took today made me feel, let's see, is that the same? Nope. This observations box is the same, but this down here is not. This one has the aligned choices I took today made me feel. Okay. Again, this is the same as all the other days. So let's see what these journaling questions say for this week. Week 3 prompts. Let's see. How are you feeling about your stop list? The thing I know I need to release is I'm struggling to let it go because I say yes when I mean no. I don't like saying no to people because the person I find it hardest to say no to is so and so. B. This is because my strategy for saying no in a way that doesn't deplete me is a phrase, a mantra, or affirmation I can say to myself when I feel I'm taking on too much. Okay, I just like had a thought. If you don't know this, our minds like to problem solve. And for me, when there's a problem I need to solve, like if I'm trying to figure out what planner I'm going to use, like it can go like it just keeps on going and it just like keeps on trying to solve that problem. I've had moments where I've had to be like, okay, I don't need to solve that right now. That to me is like a boundary where it's like I'm trying to like train my brain to be like, this is when we're gonna think about this, and I'm trying to tell myself. So I'm not telling anybody else, but I'm trying to tell myself like that's enough. I think we've mulled over all the options enough for today or for this week or whatever, and it's like I need to take a break from that. And then you're just like, okay, so then that gives you like, then you don't go looking and researching and looking for other planners or whatever. And I think that's also like a thing that it's like a with yourself. That's kind of like I think where I was trying to go with it earlier. That's the example. Um, Knowing that about like my mind and like how it's like once it's got a problem that it needs to solve, it's like, oh my God. And so like I think kind of like understanding that and learning that about yourself, like this could pull up and make you realize that maybe you do that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. Let me know if that's you too. If like you feel like that sometimes. I know that I think the awareness of it and like becoming more aware, and I think that's part of this journaling journey and like the process of getting better about taking care of yourself is like the awareness that like when this happens, if I go down this road, this is where it leads. You identify it quickly and you can like pivot and shift to the direction that you want to go. If that makes sense. I have no idea if that made any sense, guys. Please tell me if that made sense. Anyway, the week 3 reflection, again, this part's the same and then these are different. This actually is the same as last week about the next steps going forward. Making aligned choices. The easiest thing about making aligned choices was because the hardest thing about making aligned choices was because, and then week 4. There's no prep. It's just this page to read, and it is about gratitude. It explains how gratitude is the art of intentionally appreciating someone or something. When you practice gratitude, you shine the light of awareness on something that you're thankful for and allows yourself to experience how good it feels to have that something in your life. And so it says this week there you're going to weave a gratitude practice into your life. On the daily pages, you'll discover a space to note something you're grateful for. Try to write something different every day. So here you write what you're grateful for, which is a lot of space. I would even like maybe bullet point. You can list like multiple things if you want to, like brief things instead of maybe like writing about one long thing. Or like I think the reason they give you a lot of space is because you can deepen it by saying like why you're grateful for that. Again, here's your burnout tracker, observations, reflections. So this is really honestly like this last week is really just going down the road of just being grateful. It doesn't even ask you anything. I mean, it does say, you know, you prioritize yourself and your needs. So it does play into like the self-care and taking care of yourself. You made aligned choices. It added that to the tracker from last week that you made aligned choices. Did it have made aligned choices in last week? Oh, it did. Wait. Yeah, it did. Made aligned choices. It didn't have the aligned choices. Okay, so it added the made aligned choices on here. And then now that you found a reason to be grateful. Made aligned choices is reminding you that you are saying no to things and that you are aligning your decisions based on that. So that's, I like how they have this like down here. So don't dismiss this because it kind of pulls in, because I was about to say like it almost like feels like it neglects everything from before, but it doesn't. This is how it builds on from before. Reflection, things I learned today. Kind of vague. So let's see what these journaling prompts are for this last week. I'm curious. Probably just about, obviously it's going to be about gratitude. For the purpose of this exercise, I choose to believe that burnout happened for my benefit. I really liked this one. I remember when I first read it, I was like, wow, yep. Through this perspective, I'm grateful for the burnout because it showed me blank. When I look back, what is the drawing force that got me to this point? How can I be grateful for it? Right now at this point, I'm grateful to be learning. 25 reasons I'm grateful to be me. So these are cool. Yeah, these are just to expand more on gratitude. So it's really leaning heavy on gratitude. All right, then that's the end of the 4 weeks. So then you get to the part at the end where you are reflecting again. So you're going to retake the burnout quiz, which is these are the same questions from the burnout quiz before. And you have a little space to write how things have changed since you first answered the quiz. Then you have this reflection section about how your life has changed. So it's kind of broken down in the 4 weeks. So first, understanding your stressors and energy drains, which was from week 1, removing the things from your stop list. So you can talk about what's working, how can I improve in this area, biggest wins, your biggest takeaway related to that. Okay. Then when it comes to putting yourself first in self-care, which was the focus in week 2, you're going to journal about what's working, how can I improve, your biggest wins, your biggest takeaway. And then for in week 3, we were talking about boundaries and saying no, like what's working, how can I improve, your biggest wins, your takeaway. And then the gratitude section, what's working, how can I improve. For a lot of people who have never practiced this, like it would be interesting to see like how their perspective is after 4 weeks. I don't know, like if 4 weeks is long enough. Actually, not even 4 weeks. You didn't even practice it for 4 weeks. You only practiced it for like 1 week before you get to this. So I don't know if that was long enough to really kind of get the effect of like the benefits of practicing gratitude. I would honestly continue doing it longer and beyond that. And then here's the last page. What do I want to keep doing? So after these 4 weeks are done, you're kind of like, hey, what do I want to keep doing? Do you want to keep journaling? Do you want to keep like continuing with the stop list, the things that you aren't doing on that? You want to like add one more thing to the stop list, that kind of stuff. What further items? Oh, I'll see. What further items on my stop list do I want to eliminate? So yeah, and then it just tells you, congratulations, you finished, which I was kind of disappointed when I got to this part at the end because I was expecting for it to give me something else to do next, like a next step. Like when you're done with this, because this company has other journals, it might be appropriate for someone who, once they've completed this, to move into a different journal that they have. And it could have recommended them like to move on to that, because I feel like if you really enjoyed this whole experience and you get to the end and it's just kind of like, congratulations, your best life awaits, you've got this, I'd be kind of like, okay, like now what do I do? And I understand that like they kind of, the whole theme has been like, it's not trying, the journal doesn't try and tell you what to do exactly, but I think like after it's taking you on like a 4 week journey, it probably should have some kind of like next to best step. Like even if it would have just said, like visit our website to check out our other journals that you might be interested in. Like that by itself, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense. Like give somebody who's just gone through this, like an action step, what a call to action is what they call it. So it kind of lacked that. However, even like with that, I think that this would be a really good journal to gift to somebody. I don't know that somebody who is experiencing burnout might seek this out on their own and find it. Because I know for me, when I finally was like, you know what, I reached a point where some things need to change. My first inclination wasn't, let me go buy a journal, a prompted journal. It really wasn't. So I think that like I love this idea. I just don't know how many people would actually, like, who are experiencing it, would actually like seek it out to use. Let me know what you think. If you've experienced burnout and you think that this is something that would have helped you, if I would have received this when I was like at the start and I was finally at a point where I accepted like, okay, I'm burned out. I need to do something different. This is not sustainable. If I would have received this at that moment, then I would have definitely found it helpful. I feel it would have definitely sped up like everything that I've learned. If you watch this video because you're experiencing burnout or you feel like you might be on the verge of burnout and you think that this might help you, and after watching this whole thing and you've watched this whole thing, you think, wow, that actually might help me, I think it might be worth it to you. especially if you're feeling that way after you see this whole review and you saw everything in it, because on the website it doesn't really show you all the pages. I think that this would definitely get you closer to feeling better than doing nothing, in my opinion. I don't think it would hurt to try this out. It is a little pricey, I feel, for it only being a 4-week journal. However, I understand the pricing being like that because of the fact that it has like all the worksheet pages and all the information, all that. So like I see the value in it. I hope that this was helpful in helping you decide if this is something that you want to get, or maybe to gift to somebody else that you know. I will make sure to leave the links in the description, both to the website direct and to the Amazon link where I shopped. If this is something that you aren't interested in, or you are looking for other journals to consider for yourself or for somebody else, I'll make sure to pop a playlist up here so you can head over there to see other reviews that I've done on journals. If you like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you are not subscribed and you want to see more videos about self-care and planning, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.